Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, photographing the peaks, lakes, and wildlife of Glacier and Waterton, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Jim Beissel. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Jim, take it away.
Thanks so much, Rob, and thank you everyone for tuning in today. I'm really excited to talk about this place that I love so much, and I hope that by the end of this hour, you're going to love as much as I do and want to come join in the field. This is, of course, Glacier and Waterton National Parks located on the border of Montana and Alberta, Canada. Uh, my name's James Beissel. I go by Jim. I've been a NatHab expedition leader for a little over 5 years now, and I specialize in guiding our national parks itineraries. I love Glacier. I think a lot of the other guides will agree. It is one of the most special national parks that we have. And having visited many of them, I keep coming back to this place time and time again and just learning more and more about it and becoming more and more connected to this landscape. As a wildlife photographer, I like to focus on mammals, especially. I have photographed some of the most elusive mammals on the North American continent and in the United States, including the only jaguar known to be inhabiting the United States. Other rare things that I've found include the first kit fox that's been documented in Colorado for over 100 years, the first photos of a hognose skunk in Colorado ever taken, and the first footage of flying squirrels captured in Colorado. I've photographed endangered species all around the globe, and along with my wife, also run a film production company where we specialize in doing stories about endangered species and conservation topics. So Glacier National Park, one of the most incredible landscapes to be witnessed. It's almost as if these mountains are reaching up into the sky and just tearing the clouds apart. At the same time, there's these forces of nature, the ice, the snow, the water eroding away these landscapes. It's just such a dramatic juxtaposition of these different geologic factors to create these incredible landscapes. It was established as a national park in 1910, and that's thanks in part to a naturalist, famous naturalist by the name of George Bird Grinnell, who coined the name Crown of the Continent for Glacier. And this has been a name that we give to this entire ecosystem now, the Crown of the Continent ecosystem, which is not just Glacier National Park, but the entire region that surrounds it. Glacier National Park also sits on the Continental Divide, the stretch of land that separates the Atlantic from the Pacific watersheds, and has a very unique point located within the Glacier National Park boundaries, which is called Triple Divide Peak. And it's actually the confluence of three separate watersheds, the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Hudson Bay watersheds. So water from that point potentially can drain into three different oceans. Glacier has a wet side and a dry side. As it sits on this continental divide, the moist air coming from the Pacific crashes into these high mountains and loses its moisture before it reaches the east dry side on the leeward side of the mountain. So the plant communities on the east side versus the west side are very different. They both have their own unique feel. It's an incredibly spiritual place for the people that have lived here since time immemorial, the Blackfeet, the Kootenai, the Salish, and the Penderel tribes. This is an incredibly deep cultural and spiritual connection to this land for them. Artifacts here date back to over 10,000 years in the Belly River region, but we know that these people have lived here much longer than that. It's the place of their creation stories. The Blackfeet are tied to this land in many ways. It's significant for their religious and origin stories. And Chief Mountain, which sits right on the border of Glacier National Park and the Blackfeet Reservation, is one of the most sacred of all places to them and home to their creation stories. The Blackfeet call this land the backbone of the world. Right here we see a photo. You can see it. It does often resemble a backbone, these spiny ridges, arêtes of rock that wind through the high mountain wilderness here. To them, it's a connection to the land and a connection with the creator that this land symbolizes. It's also one of the sites of the oldest exposed rock on the continent. So this rock exposed here can be up to 1.5 billion years old. It was once on the bottom of an ancient seabed. And we see here evidence of fossil life that is the first multicellular organisms arising on Earth. These are called stromatolites. They were a cyanobacteria. They grow in mats. They trap the calcium and carbonate and sediments from the seabed, and that was fossilized. So these ancient cyanobacteria pumped oxygen into the atmosphere. So this was something that helped other forms of life to develop, from insects to mammals. We can see here in the fossil record the very origin of life itself. So this crown of the continent ecosystem, it extends about 250 miles. Its kind of southern end is around Missoula, Montana, and it runs north all the way up to Banff, Alberta. So we're sitting right in the middle of that crown of the continent ecosystem here in Glacier and Waterton National Parks. It's a huge, large, vast, intact ecosystem, meaning that the animals that were here prior to European contact, they're all represented for the most part. It's about 18 million acres, home to 65 species of mammals, 260 species of birds, and more than 1,400 species of native plants. So the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park was the first transboundary park in the world and is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, sitting right there on the boundary between the United States and Canada. Also represented in the crown of the continent ecosystem are the Kootenai and Flathead National Forests and the Blackfeet Reservation. So this ecosystem is home to the largest population of grizzly bears in the lower 48, as well as the densest population of wolverines in the lower 48, an animal that I am incredibly passionate about, but we are virtually guaranteed not to see on one of our trips. It's also home to black bears, lynx, and wolves. It's a wild, wild place. And even though we don't necessarily always see these animals like wolverines and wolves when we're on these trips, knowing that they're out there and knowing that this land is protected and still is wild, has that wild essence, makes it a very, very special place to visit. I'm going to walk us through a few things, and I'll start just by talking a little bit about where this trip goes. I'll talk about what to bring and what to expect. And then as we wrap up, I'll share some photos and we'll do a little Q&A session as well. So our trip begins for most at the Kalispell Airport, Glacier Park International Airport. And then we travel to Whitefish, Montana for the first night, where we'll have a welcome dinner. We'll spend a little time together getting to know each other and learning what's about to happen before setting out the next morning into the Lake McDonald region of the park. Lake McDonald is on the west side of Glacier National Park, so that's going to be the wet side. Cedar trees and hemlock, even birch trees on that side of the park along beautiful Lake McDonald. And then the next morning, we will do a number of different activities before transiting across the Going to the Sun Road, which is the famous engineering marvel that travels across Logan Pass through the high country of Glacier National Park. And we'll make our way eventually to the Many Glacier Valley, which is on the east side, one of the most beautiful areas in the park, and a fantastic place for not only landscape photography, but also wildlife sightings. After 2 nights in the Many Glacier Valley, we'll cross the border into Canada, and we'll spend the next 2 days in Waterton National Park on the Canada side. Fantastic black bear habitat up there, unbelievable scenery, just a charming little town. Really a great part of the trip. If I had to pick one, I don't know if I could, but it's a hidden gem. I'll just say that. After leaving Waterton, we'll head south and we'll make our way to the Two Medicine Valley, which is a very sacred area for the Blackfeet. As we make our journey south, we will go through the Blackfeet Reservation. And as we spend the next couple days there in Two Medicine, we'll have a chance to learn more about their culture. Finally, on day 9, we will transit across the southern border of Glacier National Park back to where we started in Kalispell or Whitefish. For those that are flying out, we'll drop you right at the airport. For those that are going to stay a little longer, we'll bring everyone back to Whitefish, that wants to check back into the hotel and continue adventures from there. Let's talk a little bit about how to pack for this trip. This is a very hiking intensive trip, so probably the most important thing to bring is a good pair of boots, something that's waterproof, breathable, lightweight, and most importantly, broken in. Don't buy a new pair of boots and bring them on the trip without having worn them. I don't want anybody to get blisters. Make sure to bring a water bottle. NatHab should be sending you one of those in advance, so pack that along with some sun protection, not just sunscreen, but consider bringing a long sleeve lightweight shirt or like a sunshade hoodie or a big brimmed hat to keep the sun off. We're going to be at some high elevation sites that get a lot of sun. A headlamp or a small flashlight's a handy thing to have. We'll have some early mornings on this trip, especially because we're going to get up and try to catch the sunrise on a number of days. So having a little flashlight to help you if you're looking through your pack or something like that is really handy. And trekking poles are provided. We have enough that each guest can have one if everybody wanted one. So if you do have a pair that you really like, or you want to make sure that you have a pair of your own, no matter what, you might consider bringing some. It's really important to bring your passport on this trip. You won't be able to get into Canada without a passport or another approved form of identification. So make sure that you have that before leaving. And layers of clothing. This is a trip where we could see temperature swings on any given day of 40 degrees or more. It's quite common to wake up very chilly and to be nice and toasty running the air conditioner in the vehicles by the end of the day or the afternoon. So we say summer clothing and warm clothing, as well as rain jacket and pants. As far as optics go, we provide binoculars on this trip. If you have a pair of your own that you really like, you're welcome to bring them. And of course, this is a photography trip, so don't forget your camera. When we talk about clothing, we talk about dressing in layers, so you can always peel off layers as the day goes on like an onion. One of the most important things to have for this trip is just going to be a good warm jacket. Something like a puffy jacket that's insulated with down is going to be your go-to piece on those chilly mornings. But by about 10 or 11 a.m., you'll probably have shed the puffy jacket, maybe even shed a fleece layer that you have underneath that, and we could be down to our t-shirts by noon on just about any day. Great idea to bring a rain jacket and pants. We don't use the rain pants that often, but occasionally we do get some pretty good soaking rain, especially there on the west side of the park. And it's good to have those, just a lightweight pair of fully waterproof rain pants tucked away somewhere in the bottom of your bag. And if you bring them, you won't need them. That's how those rain layers work. If you do get a little chilly, you can throw those rain pants on just for a little bit extra warmth too, and that works out pretty well. Great idea to bring a good big brimmed hat or a hooded sun jacket or sun shirt or something like that, as well as don't forget to bring gloves and a warm hat, a beanie or a toque, just to keep your head warm on those chilly mornings. Feel free to bring your own binoculars, as I mentioned before, although we do have a pair of nice binoculars on our vehicles for everyone who would like them once you arrive, so don't feel like you have to. So this is our photo expedition that we're talking about today, which is different than our typical nature journey in a couple of different ways. This is a trip with a photography emphasis, so that means that we're going to be focusing on photography as the primary objective on this trip. We're going to be looking for the best shots and staying a little bit longer or timing our visits to sites to get the best light and to have a little more time to set up compositions and to work on some photography skills while we're there. Our photography expeditions have smaller groups, so we'll have a max of 10 guests, and that will be a 5-to-1 ratio. So we'll have 2 expedition leaders for our 10 guests on these trips. So that's a smaller group and a higher guide to guest ratio than on our nature journey, so that we can give you some individual focused attention and instruction on your photography techniques while we're out there. And of course, on our photo expeditions, we have our photo expedition leaders, which are going to be our photography instructors. They're going to have the skills and they're going to have the instructional capability to help you get the most out of this trip, help you take the best pictures you can. I'm going to talk a bit about what to pack for Glacier and Waterton. This trip is a lot of hiking. It's a lot of on-the-go photography. So I really recommend that people pack light. I can't emphasize that enough. For the most part, our photo opportunities are going to occur quite often when we're on the trail, while we're out there, out and about hiking around. So if you don't have it with you while you're out there hiking, it's not going to do you a lot of good. And if you've got a big heavy pack that's weighing you down, it's going to wear you out and it's not going to be as much fun. So light is right. My personal preference is to pack 2 camera bodies. I'll talk about that a little bit more. But a good combination of equipment to bring for this is a mid-range zoom lens and a telephoto zoom lens. So you have a lens that will be dedicated to landscapes and another one for wildlife. You can also choose a few other lenses if you want to go with a wide angle or a macro. Those are some choices that you have too. I definitely recommend bringing a lightweight tripod, a backpack, or some other carrying system to get all of your gear into, some creative filters, and of course, extra memory cards and batteries. Never a bad idea to stock up on those. So as far as laptop goes, this isn't a trip where we're going to be classroom intensive. It's a personal choice if you want to bring your laptop or not. If you want to shoot raw, if you want to edit your photos or go through them at the end of each day, more than welcome to bring it. If you're one of the types of photographers that doesn't want to think about looking at a computer until you're back home because you're on vacation, that's just fine too. If you have more gear than you want to carry with you while you're hiking, that's just fine. There will be the ability to leave gear in the van and secure it either in your room or in the van while we're out and about. So that can always be stashed so you're not carrying everything that you brought with you every single time we go out. When it comes to cameras, I definitely recommend choosing lightweight models over the bigger gripped flagship bodies that often have the multiple grips on them and are quite heavy since we are going to be doing quite a bit of hiking. I would often suggest if you can bring 2 bodies, that gives you some advantages. It means that you're going to minimize changing lenses. It's going to minimize the amount of dirt that can potentially get into your sensor. Every time you change lens, you potentially can get dust and dirt blown in there. It's going to reduce the chance that you goof up settings. So if you have one camera that's dedicated to wildlife photography and one camera that's dedicated to landscape photography, that means that you won't ever accidentally set your shutter speed to 1/10 of a second, and then you have a fleeting wildlife opportunity where you pop the camera up and realize it was set for a landscape photo, and that animal's now run by before you could get a photo out. So it minimizes the chance of having those. And it also gives you a backup if something breaks. There aren't a lot of camera stores where we're going to be. There aren't any, to be honest. So options are pretty limited for finding any type of replacement or other equipment while we're on this trip. If you're traveling with a spouse or a friend, you can also back each other up. So by sharing the same camera system, you can have a built-in backup if you want to trade lenses or you need an extra battery or something like that. So it's good to have backups of everything while you're out there on these trips. I like to talk about the differences between wildlife photography and a landscape photography camera features. So if you're looking at cameras and you'd like something for wildlife photography, you're looking for something that's fast autofocus with subject detection and tracking. The latest generation of autofocus is incredible compared to what we had 10 years ago with eye detection, animal detection, subject tracking. It's making it so much easier to lock in and get good focus over and over again, especially when you have wildlife that's moving or going behind brush, things like that. A high frame rate is going to help you capture wildlife as it's moving and in the peak of action, and a dedicated autofocus button like your back button focus. That's going to allow you to run the focus motor independently of the shutter, and that will let you have more control over how and when the camera focuses. Landscape photography cameras, they are often higher megapixel, or you're looking for something with high megapixels if you want to do prints. Features like exposure bracketing and automatic focus stacking will help you with tricky exposure or focus situations. Now, a lot of cameras have both of these sets of features, and that's great. Not every camera is going to have all these, but if you're looking for a camera, those are some things to consider. A couple of other things that will be very helpful: an L plate, which is a tripod bracket for your camera that can support the camera in either a horizontal or vertical position, is going to be very useful for not only balancing the camera over the center of your tripod, but also if you like to shoot panorama, having the camera in vertical format on an L bracket makes it a much easier operation. A shutter release cable, also a good thing to throw in your bag. It's optional. You can use the camera self-timer if you want, but if you have one of these, it might help you be a little faster in the field. When it comes to lenses, mid-range zoom is kind of the bread and butter of all the lenses. This is going to be your most widely used lens. It's great for just about everything from landscapes to candid photos, even close-ups of wildlife. So we're looking at something like a 24 to 120 millimeter lens here. A telephoto zoom is my recommended lens for this trip for wildlife photography, something like a 100 to 400, or maybe something like a 180 to 600, a little bit heavier, but still something that can be easily put into a backpack. You can consider bringing a teleconverter if you'd like to, if you want to get a little bit more reach. Put on like a 1.4 teleconverter, and that will get you even closer for wildlife. Now on this trip, I don't necessarily recommend a super telephoto lens. When I'm talking about those, I'm talking about these big heavy lenses like a 600 millimeter f4 that you typically would not shoot handheld, and if you did, not for very long, and they're very heavy for hiking. If you do bring one of those, you're always welcome to lock it in the van, but for the most part, something that's light and hand holdable that you can pack with you while you're hiking and shoot without a tripod and quickly get in and out is going to be your go-to lens on this. Most of our wildlife sightings are going to occur from foot, so having a lens with you is the most important thing. I recommend putting a UV filter on all lenses. I've included that in the photo here. That's what the little filter is in front of those lenses. That's just a clear protective filter that will allow you to rest assured that that front element of your lens is not going to get damaged while you're out there. And every once in a while, those get scuffed up and you can just easily replace them instead of having to worry about replacing the front element of your lens, which is a costly repair. We're going to have the opportunity to visit and photograph a lot of waterfalls and see a lot of running water, cascading water when we're on this trip. So a neutral density filter is a really great item to include in your kit. That's going to reduce the amount of light that reaches your sensor. It's like sunglasses for your camera. And the reason you want to dim the light is so that you can use a slower shutter speed, even if it's bright light. By decreasing the amount of light that reaches the camera, you can get a properly exposed photo at a slower speed. And that's what gets us that really beautiful silky water look. On top of that, it's also very useful to have a circular polarizing filter. That's going to increase the richness of the colors when they're scattered by glare or atmosphere. Polarizing lenses can allow you to see down into water, so they're reducing that glare. And they're really handy for photographing blue skies as well. They're going to make the sky a much more saturated, beautiful blue. It brings out the greens and the vegetation. A handy piece of kit to have as well. Now, besides those two basic lenses, you may wish to bring an X Factor lens, something that's going to give you a little bit more creative ability, something just kind of for fun, and a couple options there if you'd like to pack them. One would be an ultra wide angle lens. So these are lenses that shoot 24 millimeters or wider, such as a 14 to 24 or 16 to 24, something that's going to get you that ultra wide view, which can be used creatively. It's also useful for getting architectural photos or interiors if you want to get a big interior shot. Adds depth to landscapes. And if you'd like to do any night sky photography, a fast wide angle lens like a 14 millimeter 2.8 is going to be really useful for stars. Even though this isn't necessarily a night sky trip, there are sometimes opportunities to capture some night sky. It's not always bad to have a wide angle lens. The wildflowers can be amazing on this trip. We have fireweed here in this photo. We also see glacier lilies, bear grass, a lot of beautiful wildflowers. If you're into flower photography, insect photography, or just want to capture some of the details like in sandstone or anything like that, you might want a macro lens. You don't have to pack a dedicated macro lens if you don't want to, though. One of the approaches I use a lot when I'm traveling is just to bring a close-up filter. So that's just a filter that acts like eyeglasses, reading glasses for my 100 to 400 millimeter lens, and allows me to focus closer by moving the lens closer to my subject, which increases the magnification. And it works in a pinch as a macro lens. An extension tube can perform a similar function for you. And if you don't want to pack that extra lens, one of those accessories can help you convert your existing lens into a macro lens. It's great if you can standardize all of your lenses on the same filter size. So if you're bringing multiple lenses that use the same filter size, for example, 77 millimeters, you can just bring one set of filters that are that size. If you don't have matching lenses, you can always buy adapter rings too that will step up your lens size to your filter size. So just buy a large filter that's bigger than as big as your biggest lens. And if that's 77 millimeters or 82 millimeters, you can get a stepping ring that will allow you to mount that larger filter on a smaller lens. A tripod will be very helpful on this trip if you would like to photograph landscapes at dawn and dusk, or if you would like to photograph running water. That's going to keep your camera stable for those long exposure times. It can also be useful for photographing wildlife if you would like to mount that long lens on something to not have to hand hold it. So look for something that's lightweight. Again, everything as light as we can make it, something that you can collapse down to fit inside your baggage while bringing the camera up to as close to eye level as possible. Ideally, I would say to eye level, but with a travel tripod, sometimes that's just not possible. I'm 6'1". It's pretty hard to find a light tripod that can also get the camera all the way up to my eye level. But the mirrorless cameras with the articulating screens are making it a lot easier. You don't necessarily have to bend over to get your eye through the viewfinder as much anymore either. It's great if you have a tripod that can get very low to the ground. If you can spread the legs and get the tripod just a few inches off the ground, that can really help you with creative compositions, getting foreground flowers or rocks into your composition. Finally, look for something with a sturdy ball head and make sure that the clamp on the ball head and all the camera plates that you have are all compatible, such as like Arca Swiss. And finally, a way to carry it all. I recommend a camera backpack of some kind that has room for your camera bodies and lenses, as well as the basic necessities that you're going to need to be out and about for our excursions. Most of our hikes will be, a couple hours long, maybe a little bit longer, but we're not going out from dawn till dusk out of the same backpack, so you don't need to worry about bringing too many extra items. But it's good to have some room in there, not only for your water bottle, but also maybe a snack or two and just your extra clothing layers as the day warms up, have a place to stick those. If there's a place to attach your tripod, great. That's going to be very helpful to not have to carry your tripod in your hand. And look for something with a waist belt. That'll get the heavy mass of the pack off of your shoulders and onto your hips so that it'll be much more comfortable to carry. And finally, a rain cover. Hopefully we don't need it, but if you bring it and you can stash it in the bottom of your pack somewhere, it's not a bad idea to have that. Now, I just rattled off a whole bunch of things, and if you wanted any of these, I give you full permission to go to the camera store today and buy any of those things. If that's not what you're looking for right now, that's okay. You don't need to have all of those things to have a good time. You don't need all of those things or an expensive camera to take good photos. This photo right here was taken on an iPhone or an old camera phone, actually. And there's no camera that's better than the one that you have with you. So we can help you improve your photography no matter what level of kit you have, and you can have a great time and be very creative with any kind of camera. It does not necessarily have to be the newest or the most expensive model. In fact, sometimes it's easier to get good photos with a phone camera versus some of the more complicated systems. So something to keep in mind. I'm going to shift just a bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about just getting to Glacier. So most folks will be flying into Glacier Park International Airport just outside of Kalispell. There's major carriers that service Glacier from just about every corner of the globe. So most of you will make your way here. And upon arrival, you'll meet your NatHab expedition leader at the airport. Just look for them holding a sign that should say NatHab and your name on it. And we'll get you to the hotel in Whitefish, Montana, which is the Firebrand Hotel. That's where we'll be staying for the first night. And if you arrive a little early, there's plenty to do and explore in downtown Whitefish. It's all walkable from the hotel. There's shops, restaurants, and it's a fun little town of about 9,000 people, one of the most fun mountain towns in Montana. So as you explore Whitefish, eventually you'll make your way back to the Firebrand, and we'll all get together for that first time, that first night you're here. As we travel through Glacier National Park in Waterton, we're going to be using our brand new North America Safari Cruisers. These are really cool customized vehicles that NatHab has built from the ground up around the Mercedes Sprinter platform. Everybody will get a window seat on this trip. So we have a guest ratio that allows everyone to sit next to the window, so there's no middle seats. These vans have some really cool features combining the rugged expedition exterior with a luxury interior, including faux leather seats, and we have USB charging capabilities inside now. One of the coolest things that we have, though, is the roof actually lifts up on these vans, and it makes it into a mobile photography platform for us. So as we're going down the road and we see wildlife or other photo opportunities, we can actually hit a button and hydraulics lift the whole entire roof up and give us a 360-degree view up there. It's really a cool thing. We've got padded rails all the way around the top of the pop top so that you can rest on those with your arms as you're taking photos, or use a beanbag to stabilize your camera. And we have a wireless headset that allows the expedition leader to share all of the interpretive information with you over the broadcast system so that you can hear in the back as well. Our travel distances on this trip aren't too long. Most days we're looking at less than 2 hours from point to point, so we're not going to be spending any real big long days just in transit. On top of using our Safari Cruisers, we're also going to be riding on a number of different historic boats. Some of these are almost 100 years old now, and they give us some really great views. We often see wildlife from the boats, and they help us get from point to point and save us miles on the trail so that we can get to remote trailheads and go further afield. These boat rides are typically very calm, not really a concern for motion sickness. If you do have concerns, talk to your expedition leader. We've got Dramamine, and I don't think anybody's ever had to take it, but it's a very smooth, typically short boat rides that give us really beautiful views. Now, Glacier has been marketed as a tourist destination since its inception. The Great Northern Railroad promoted Glacier as a safer, easier alternative to these lengthy boat rides to Europe, and promoted these campaigns to see America first, and promoted Glacier as America's Switzerland. So there's these lodges that were built in the Swiss chalet style by a man named Louis Hill, who was a son of James Hill, the founder of the Great Northern Railroad. So these lodges still stand today. We'll be visiting and in some cases staying in these lodges. This is the Many Glacier Hotel, built in 1915, and has the most magnificent view of Glacier National Park right out the front deck. This makes it fantastic for for landscape photography. Now, sunrise is very, very early in July. However, at the Many Glacier Hotel, you can just crawl out of bed, wander a few hundred steps to the side of the hotel right there on the shore of Swift Current Lake, capture your photo, and if you want to crawl right back into bed after sunrise, it's just a few steps back to your room. So it makes it a really great lazy landscape photography location. Lazy landscape location, 3 L's. And magnificent views. This is the interior of the Glacier Park Lodge, also known as the Big Timber Lodge, built with these massive timbers with the bark still on them. The historic Prince of Wales Hotel in Canada in Waterton, built in 1927, the only hotel built by the great decided. Lake McDonald Lodge, built by another man named John Lewis. All these hotels are very, very beautiful structures, photography worthy in their own right. They make great subjects for photography. Really, really incredible locations too. They're all built in just the most magnificent spots imaginable. We like to say on NatHab trips that you'll never go hungry while we're out on a NatHab trip, and that's definitely true in this case. We're going to be in Montana, and we'll get Montana-sized portions most places that we go. And a lot of our food is local food, local trout, local bison often on the menu, sometimes other types of game like elk. Lots of treats available to us while we're out there, not just chocolates, but pastries as well. There's a lot of, I'm sorry, if you have any dietary concerns, those are things that we can almost always accommodate. Talk to your adventure concierge ahead of time and we can double check that. But for the most part, we're able to accommodate most dietary considerations. And we do like to mix up this cuisine a bit. A lot of the cuisine is kind of Montana steakhouse, and there's a lot of, but there's also opportunities for us to go into some more eclectic cuisine. I'll say that, and some of the places that we visit, mix it up a little bit. So hiking is the main activity on this trip. And we do typically do about 2 or 3 excursions per day. Our altitude ranges anywhere from about 3,100 to over 7,000 feet above sea level. You want to make sure that you're able to walk unassisted for at least 3 miles on rough terrain and be comfortable with some inclines and some gains in altitude in your hikes. So this trip gets a physical rating of moderate. Sometimes that means that we're hiking on boardwalk or very developed trail. Other times it can be a muddy trail. Sometimes it's even snowy trail. This photo is from Logan Pass. Early season at Logan Pass, it's not uncommon to still have snow on the ground up there. That's also the highest point on our trip, where we reach an elevation of 7,170 feet. We try to have a flexible itinerary on these photo trips so that we can take advantage of the best light and the best photo opportunities. And that can vary from day to day as well as season to season based on factors like where has wildlife been spotted, what are trail conditions like, what are flowers or other natural spectacles at in their seasonal progression, and just interest of the group too. If we have interest in photographing flowing water or interest in photographing mountainous landscapes, we can often use that flexible itinerary to tailor our hikes on a daily basis to the group's interests and what is going to be the best subject throughout the season, because it's a very changing landscape. Logan Pass typically melts out late June, early July, and as that snow melt trickles down into all the other valleys of the region, the landscape's always changing. Another really cool day on our trip is our our Two Medicine visit. When we're in Two Medicine, we get to meet with some of our guides that are Blackfeet, and we'll present on the culture, and we've also visited some of these very significant spiritual places while we're in the Two Medicine Valley. The Two Medicine site was a place for vision quests historically, and also is the site of this waterfall, which is called Running Eagle Falls, named after a Blackfeet warrior woman who was one of the most fierce and admired of the Blackfeet. So as we're there, we're going to learn more about their culture and their connection to this land. And of course, everyone wants to know, what wildlife can we expect to see while we're in Glacier? And it is a very diverse landscape with a very high diversity of wildlife. Bighorn sheep are one of the stars of the show, and often seen on our trips, especially in the Logan Pass area. And of course, mountain goats. So mountain goats are the inhabitants of the high altitude parts of the park. They're so well adapted to these rugged alpine regions, and they have these thick, shaggy coats and these very specially adapted hooves that allow them to traverse the rugged terrain. The kids, they're so cute, like this one here, and often we're able to get very close to both the bighorn sheep and the mountain goats when we're on Logan Pass. It's one of the best sites for them. Moose are often seen, especially when we're in the Many Glacier Valley area of this trip. Both bull moose, like the one here with the antlers still in velvet, as well as cow moose and even calves, especially, yes, around the Many Glacier area. We see other species of the deer family as well in these trips, mule deer and white-tailed deer, both members of the deer family, the moose being the biggest member of the deer family, all seen on our trips. And of course, bears. Now, grizzly bears are not an animal that we make a practice of photographing on foot. For both our safety and to comply with the regulations in the park, we need to be at least 100 yards away from these animals. This photo is actually taken from one of our boat tours. So while we were on the boat, this pair of grizzly bears went down the shore of the lake right past us as we were on the boat. Doesn't happen every day, but we have quite good odds of spotting grizzly bears somewhere on this journey. And we also bring spotting scopes so that we have better chances of finding them, because they like to spend a lot of their time up in the high alpine looking for food and turning over rocks, eating moths and eating roots and things like that at the higher elevations. So for grizzly bears and black bears, we're required to stay 100 yards away. Other animals, we try to stay 25 yards away to comply with regulations. And a lot of that is for the animals' well-being as well as for our safety. We want to show respect to these animals and make sure that they're not expending the valuable calories that they need to survive to potentially flee from us. And we never put ourselves in a position where we're causing that animal to expend energy for our entertainment. And that's just ethical wildlife watching. And then while we're in Waterton, we're also in prime black bear habitat. So we will make a point to patrol the area around Waterton, which is a fantastic place to see black bear. So both black bear and grizzly bear are present in this ecosystem. On top of that, we have a lot of small mammals that can be really charming photographic subjects as well. Ground squirrels, or this is called a hoary marmot. It's kind of like a woodchuck that lives in the high alpine. The ground squirrels and their antics can be quite fun to photograph. So we get a lot of different opportunities to photograph mammals on this trip, as well as broad array of different birds. So we see bald eagle, osprey. It's quite likely to see many other wild or bird species while we're on the trip as well. Okay, I'm just going to pause here, and I think that if we can open this up to questions, Rob, if you have some to throw my way, I'll do my best to answer them.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. Now, before we dive into the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that if you do have questions, that you can submit them via the question field in your control panel. If you head up to the upper right-hand corner of your control screen, you'll see those 3 lines called the hamburger. Go ahead and click on that and scroll down to questions, and you can submit your questions in there. So, Jim, let me ask you this. Um, you said there are 10 people on the trip. How many guides are going to be with us on this trip?
Two guides, two guides
Two.
to 10 guests.
Great. And when we come out there, we see all this lovely scenery. Is there other trips that you would recommend that maybe we could add on to this one after we've seen the area since we've come all the way out there?
Yeah, great question. There are some guests that combine this with our Yellowstone trip, and that's something that you may want to talk to your adventure concierge about if you want to do that. You can line up the timing such that you can either go to Yellowstone and then continue up to Glacier or vice versa. Some guests like to continue north and go to Alberta, Banff, and see the sights up there as well.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So, is the hotel in Whitefish within walking distance from the train station? If not, is there a shuttle? How could I get there if I come in by train?
You can walk from the train station to the Firebrand Hotel. It's less than a mile.
Wow, that's pretty close. Good to know. Um, so, what about altitude? Is altitude an issue? How much time are we going to spend in high altitude?
Good question. Once we arrive in Whitefish, I believe we're at an altitude of about 3,200 feet above sea level. Our trip will take us all the way up to Logan Pass. That's the highest point on going to the Sun Road. That is at about 6,600 feet. The hike there takes us to an overlook that's about 7,100 feet. The average sleeping elevation on this trip is going to be between 3,500 feet and 4,000 feet, which is what most people um, feel the most is the altitude that we sleep at because it can impact your rest if you're coming from sea level. So not as high as Denver, but still it's going to feel a bit higher if you're coming from sea level. So plan accordingly for that. I think Lake McDonald area is at about 3,500 feet, and then Waterton, where we'll be towards the end of the trip, is at about 4,000 feet, somewhere in there.
Gotcha. Thank you. And so, will I have any issue with altitude sickness, do you think? Or if I drink enough water, will I be okay?
It can affect everybody differently. If you've been to altitude before, you have some idea of how your body responds. If you don't, um, it's good to give yourself lots of extra rest. Hydration is important. Avoiding alcohol will help you to acclimatize better. Fortunately, this trip starts in Whitefish, so we're going to ease into the altitude and it won't be a sudden jump for anybody. But the more you can take care of yourself, the better. And if you have any further questions about altitude, talk to your venture concierge or even your doctor if you want to.
Perfect. Thank you, Jim. Okay, could you clear up a little issue for us? Is it a hoary mammoth or hairy marmot? I just don't know exactly what. Could you
All
help us
right,
clarify that?
it's hoary, and it's Hoary, so it refers to their coat pattern, um, having gray hairs in it, I believe.
Gotcha. I know that's just a common misconception. We had a bunch of questions about that, so I wanted to get that out of the way right away. So on the trip, is there an actual glacier that we're going to see?
Um, So Glacier has a whole slew of glaciers in it. Most of them are quite difficult to get to on foot, requiring day-long hikes or more, as they're in inaccessible pockets of backcountry. However, there are several that are visible as we're traversing the Going to the Sun Road. There are a couple that we can see while we're on the road. So there's lookouts that we'll be able to pull over and see the glaciers. They'll be at a distance, but they will be visible. And on a clear day, you can even see some of the features in the glacier, like the crevasses. When we stay at Many Glacier Hotel, there is also a famous glacier called the Salamander Glacier that's visible from the hotel in that region. However, just because they are very remote and require a lot of hiking to get to, we typically won't be setting foot or getting in close proximity to them on the trip.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that. So We have a couple of questions about what is normal on the photography trip. Now, are you just going to be leading us to an area and letting us take pictures? Are you going to be helping us learn how to take the best photos? Can you give us a little bit more information on how the photo trip works?
Yes, yes to both of those things. Our goal is to get you at the right place at the right time and to bring you to the iconic photo opportunities in Glacier. On top of that, we try to incorporate instruction in every opportunity. So as we're going out to photograph something, there's often a corresponding skill that we'll highlight during that time and teach techniques to develop your skills at that particular genre or using a particular skill, whether you're shooting on an iPhone or whether you are an advanced photographer that's using a more sophisticated camera system. We try to incorporate many lessons into each outing for photographers of all skill levels.
And if I need help editing or with some suggestions, will there be time later on in the day to sit and talk about this a little more too?
Yeah, so although this isn't a course where we have a lot of classroom time, it's not a sit down workshop. We're going to be on the go. We're going to be in the field most of our time. We definitely are happy to work with photographer guests who would like to talk a bit more about post processing, who might want to sit down and go through some photos and do a quick critique or talk through kind of approaches to post processing those photos. We get those kind of opportunities on kind of an ad hoc basis as we're maybe over coffee or at the end of the day when we're back in the lodge.
Gotcha. Can you just walk us through maybe what a typical day would look like from wake up to bedtime, just so we have a basic idea of how much we're going to be putting into this?
Yes. Um, so at a lot of our lodges, we are able to capture the sunrise almost right out the back door of the lodge in some cases, which is fantastic. So a typical day, if we're going to wake up to get the sunrise, it's going to be an early morning because in July, there's only a few hours of night in northern Montana and southern Canada. So that alarm clock might be going off between 4:15 and 4:30 in the morning to get out for a 5 to 5:30 a.m. sunrise. Uh, a lot of times after that, we're able to either go back to bed if you want to, or to go back to the lodge, have breakfast, and then we'll kind of ease into the rest of the day after having a little bit of downtime around the breakfast time. Our midday adventure could be anything from taking a boat ride to hike to a waterfall to going on a drive that takes us to scenic overlook to look at glaciers or something like that. Along those hikes or outings, there's photo opportunities to be had at any moment. Our approach is really to get into these beautiful locations and let the magic happen. So you never really know when or where wildlife is going to pop up, but we're prepared for it at any step of the way. Lunch is often in the field, so we'll typically have a field lunch that might be something that we either carry with us or somebody meets us while we're out there and brings food to us. And then we'll be back at the lodge again or a restaurant again for dinner time. And after dinner, we often have the ability to go back out for a sunset opportunity or to do a drive to look for wildlife. If the wildlife is most active around dusk, then we want to make sure that we're out there at the right time. Sunset is typically around 10 p.m., 9:30 to 10 p.m., and it's often light past 10 p.m. in the summertime up there. So the nights are short, and we'll try to cram in as much rest as we can. And it's important for people to know that you don't have to do every one of these things. If you want to sleep in the morning, if you want to opt out from some of these to get a little more rest and pace yourself, it's a-okay.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Jim. I appreciate that. Has have these parks have they been spared fire damage recently? Is it a dry area or is there a lot of water?
Um, it is typically a dry area, so especially on the east side of Glacier National Park, um, it's quite arid. On the west side, there is um, more moisture, but no area of the park is spared from forest fire. It can happen anywhere. We will see evidence of forest fire as we traverse the park. There haven't been any major fires in the last few years, but there have been some very large fires in this region, and we'll see the evidence of those as we go through. And fire plays an important role. We talk about this a lot on the trip, but it's actually integral to the ecosystem here. It's necessary for the trees to reproduce, it's necessary for the forest to uh, grow and be healthy. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but of course it can impact the air quality. And of course that's a concern for us just in terms of, we don't want to have to breathe smoke. But typically that's not a problem. When there are forest fires burning, even distant fires in the west, that can actually add a lot of color to the sky. So it's one of the benefits that we reap as landscape photographers is they can create some very brilliant sunrises because that ash in the atmosphere is actually diffracting the light as it reaches the earth and creating some very stunning skies. But it's not something that we have control over, but it is something that we have a lot of tactics for. And one of the things about this trip that is in our favor, if there is a fire, it typically doesn't affect the entire region that we're traveling through as we make our loop through Glacier and Waterton. So if we are impacted by it, it's typically for just a short period of time during the trip, and then we move on into a different region.
Great. Good to know. So, is there any one particular moment or photographic opportunity that happened to you on this trip that you would like to share with us?
Hmm, good question. Um, I think it might not be a moment; it might be more a feeling. But it can be really hard to get out of bed some days. And when that alarm clock goes off, it goes off early some days, and it hasn't been enough sleep. But I never regret it once I walk to the shore of a lake or watch the sunrise on a mountain, and all of that fades away as soon as I'm just kind of immersed in that, basking in that the alpenglow of the sunrise. It's a feeling that's hard to explain, but it's one that I think is profound and sticks with you. So if there was anything I could say, it's not the moment, but it's the feeling of just being in these places, these valleys and these mountains, and watching the sunrise and just seeing one of the most beautiful landscapes on the continent.
Well, great. Jim, thank you for sharing that with us. Unfortunately, that is going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to hand it back to you for any closing comments you might have for us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Glacier, it's the crown of the continent. It's an incredible place. The more I go back, the more time I spend in this area, the more of a connection that I have. It's been profoundly important to people that have lived there for um, thousands and thousands of years or more. And I hope everyone gets the chance to see why. I think it's a place that once you do form that attachment, it is such a meaningful place. So hope to see you all out there.
Jim, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who joined us today. So if you are interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, please give us a call at the number on your screen, or you could send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. And if you're part of a photo club and would like NatHab to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, email us at webinars@nathab.com. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.